When it comes to object shows, they're mostly the same. A bunch of objects fighting a series of challenges, one getting eliminated every episode for one big prize. This was the premise of the first one, and it worked, so why change it up? A lot of object shows take this route, maybe changing it up slightly, but in the end, it's still very similar. However, there's a percentage of object shows that prefer to take a different route. These usually take a different premise, whether it be a different type of game show, slice of life, or subversion of expectations. In my opinion, some of the greatest shows come from here. Really, I wouldn't know because I haven't watched that many object shows actually, but just stick with me. For example, let's talk about One. This is the show everyone thinks of when it comes to subverting expectations. It's clever, giving a whole new perspective to object shows while offering an interesting mystery. In the end, One is really good. However, it didn't leave me thinking about it after. I just watched it, thought it was really good, and moved on. That is something I can't say about what we're talking about today. The Nightly Manor is an absolutely beautiful object show. My first time watching it was as it came out. A lot like One, I didn't really think about it often. I just thought it was neat and forgot about it. However, around 3 months ago, the finale episode came out after 2 years of waiting for it. I had forgotten about it, but it popped up in my recommendations, so I watched it, and I really liked it. But still, I hadn't fallen in love with the show. That was until the first chapter popped up in my recommendation, and I watched it. As I finished the chapter, I rewatched episodes 4 through 6, and that was the moment I realized how incredible it is. The Nightly Manor has incredible characters, an intriguing story, and a tied-together world that truly is the cherry on top. I've wanted to talk about this show for so long, but never got around to it. But today, I say we take some time to. Before we begin, if you haven't watched Nightly Manor yet, click off this video right now. Like a lot of shows, it's better to go through without spoilers, so I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah, you've had your chance. Alright then, let's discuss why the Nightly Manor is incredible. The Nightly Manor, created by Owl Animations, is split up into 2 chapters. I'd rather go episode by episode, however episodes 1 through 3 are short and there's not much separating them. I might as well talk about them in the same section as they are just the first chapter. The first 3 episodes are the weakest of the entire show. Not to call them bad, heck no, it's still some good stuff. But compared to the highs of episodes 4 through 6, also known as chapter 2, it's not the greatest. 7 objects are invited to a mansion, however they're all locked inside and slowly are killed and picked off one by one. There's a basic summary of the first chapter, minus some plot points. There's not that much differentiating it from the other murder mysteries, however that doesn't bother me much. The Nightly Manor on some levels can be a bit of a simple show, and chapter 1 is a good example of this. Being simple doesn't make it bad. In fact, I actually really like how plain it is at points. Remember, this is an object show. It's in the same boat as shows that do wacky stuff all the time, so this change of pace and simple style is a nice refresher in my opinion. Though at the same time, chapter 1 is what the show revolves around. Almost every conflict in the series revolves around the killings that happen in the mansion, so having the first chapter be pretty simple kinda hurts it at the same time. It seems as though Alan and his crew had a lot more they wanted to do these first 3 episodes. However, a lot seemed to be cut over time restraints because the first 3 episodes were made daily. I'm not entirely too sure what the point of it being made daily is, but hey, it's fun and still the outcome was good, so I have no reason to complain, especially since the format was dropped for chapter 2. Now what makes me think the crew wanted to do more with the first part? Well, it's this scene at the start of episode 3, where we get a flashback to 2 of the characters. This flashback is nice and it's cool it's here, however it lasts like 20 seconds and still doesn't tell the viewer much. This is just a theory, but maybe there was a plan to include more flashbacks into this first part to make the deaths themselves feel more impactful. That's also another issue I have with these first episodes. The deaths themselves don't make me feel all too much sadness or sorrow. It seems that that's what they wanted the viewer to feel, as everyone besides Ring, you vile person, comes to the mansion with someone they deeply trust or care about. Only 3 of the 7 objects make it out alive, and those 3 happen to be one person in each of the 3 pairs. This criticism won't matter if you watch chapter 2, however it's kind of confusing how to get the best experience with the first 3 episodes. You have to watch the whole series first, and then go back and watch those first 3 episodes again. Though I have to give Alan and his crew props for making me feel actual sorrow for the characters' deaths after having watched episodes 4 through 6. It seems as though for an incredible show, I've been criticizing it a lot. In truth, these first 3 episodes are a bit all over when it comes to quality, however again, it's not bad. Something chapter 2 does incredibly is the pacing, however chapter 1 isn't also great at it. Episode 1 has a strange ad scene that takes up most of the episode's runtime, and from what I know, it doesn't really matter all too much. Episode 2 is probably the better of the 3 when it comes to pacing, but it still isn't all too great. The episode's length is the longest of the 3, however, it's still not long enough, as the majority of the episode feels a bit too fast. Episode 3 is way too short, and everything feels like it's on rails as events feel skimmed over, despite the moments themselves being really cool. Again, these episodes are flawed, but I still find them really good. First, let's talk about how it looks. Oh my goodness, it looks incredible. There are so many backgrounds that are just beautiful to look at, and this is something that gets better and better as the episodes go by. Also, the assets are just really good looking. There's just something about them that I love, and this goes for every asset of every character that appears on screen, maybe besides Sketchpad. Speaking of characters, they're great too. Going by when they appear, Speaker is a detective/officer. He takes charge fast, and despite making some stupid decisions, he's simple and likable. Not much for me to comment on, so we'll move on. Sketchpad? He's a bit decisive from what I've seen. He's the comic relief character of these episodes, and his jokes, though funny sometimes, seem out of place at moments. It is interesting to learn why he's so lighthearted in episode 4, but again, a regular viewer would watch these episodes first, and he's a bit off-putting for the atmosphere the show is going for, so he's fine. But later on, he gets pretty likable. Ring gets the least screen time, and throughout chapter 2, is slowly built up into someone more mysterious. She does nothing, and dies first pretty early on into the show. Not too sure what to say, she's good I guess. Toppat is... I'm not actually too sure what to say about him. A lot like Speaker, he's a more realistic member of the group, taking it all seriously, which sucks because he's paired up with Sketchpad when walking around the mansion. In chapter 2, he goes through a character arc, which is pretty nice. Not much else to say, he's pretty cool, I like him. GPS is the close one of Toppat. He's electronic, and in the end, it's implied he was used against his control to commit all the murders. That's about all he's characterized as in the first 3 episodes. He's good too. Spray Paint's my favorite of the 7 main characters. I won't get into why he's my favorite specifically, we'll get into that later, but what I can say right now is that he's the close one to Mouse and genuinely cares for her deeply, running off to find her when learning of her death. His backstory that I mentioned earlier also implies that he's an alcoholic. Do what you want with that information right now. I don't know, we'll get into that later still. Mouse is the final of the 7 main characters, and she's my second favorite. Her dynamic with Spray Paint is just beautiful to me, and I will not hesitate to praise it when we get to it later on. Mouse's character isn't much this chapter. She's just a good friend of Spray Paint, and her death scene after having watched episode 5 genuinely makes me so sad. That's all the characters, and they're all really good, maybe besides Sketchpad. I find it cool how chapter 2 revolves around them and their dynamics leading up to or after the mansion incident. It really gives the viewer a new light on the events of chapter 1. And that's about all I have to say about the first 3 episodes. They're still good, though flawed a bit, and revisiting them is still nice. Episodes 4 through 6 make up Chapter 2. The episodes themselves are a bit all over the place, from being after the incident, to a year before, to being during the murders. The episodes are everywhere. However, I actually really like this. The characters of Chapter 1 weren't built up or all that fleshed out, so having these episodes revolve around finishing up their stories, whether that be how the survivors move on or revealing more of someone's backstory, really strengthens the likability of every character. These later episodes are also the best the show has to offer. All 3 of them are more than great, and in my opinion, some of the greatest storytelling I've ever seen in a while. So let's talk about episode 4. Any Day Now came out 4 months after the end of chapter 1. Unlike those early episodes, this one is longer, which really works in this episode's and also the other 2's favor, because the slower pacing fits better for episodes with dark topics such as grief. Oh yeah, Any Day Now goes over the aftermath of the mansion incident, following Toppat and Sketchpad's ways of grieving and how they find peace again. I have to give massive props to Alan and his crew for portraying the feeling of losing a loved one really well in 2 different ways. Toppat shuns everybody down and locks himself away in his apartment all day, stuck believing the theory that GPS was never in control, while Sketchpad tries to stay optimistic, believing he can bring Speaker back as he was told to always look at the world with a smile. Their opposing views force them to view their own, and in the end, they find comfort in each other, knowing that they don't have to go through it all alone. All they can do is pick their chins up and move on, as that's what GPS and Speaker would have wanted. It's all portrayed really well, and that's the reason why this episode is fantastic. Of course, there's a lot of other reasons Any Day Now is really great, so let's talk about them. First, this episode's looks are about the same in terms of quality, looking absolutely stunning in most parts. Light effects are used many times in this show to portray a mood, and this is the first time we see it, with Sketchpad packing up his things to leave and everyone cheering as the lights are dim, representing a hopeless mood. This is incredible work. It only gets better as we move along with the show. The characters I've already mentioned, but I might as well bring them up again. They're amazing. Their different views and looks on life and grieving really fit their character, and Sketchpad's likability shot high up after this episode, making me look back at him on chapter 1 with a completely different opinion. Okay, we need to talk about the music. During Chapter 2, songs will play during the end credits or during the middle of the episode. This might seem strange for such a dark show, however, I think it fits really well. Any Day Now has 2 songs, Between You and Me and Imaginary Friend. Between You and Me plays during the montage of shopping for and building the recovery center. It's a pretty upbeat song, which is fitting seeing as Sketchpad's optimism is in action, while the lyrics are about not being able to move on and cutting the link. It's catchy, it's fun, I really like it. It also seems to be the fan favorite, however, I have a different song I really adore, and we will definitely be talking about that later on. Imaginary Friend plays during the credits and is about questioning if the person you really know for so long was real. Obviously, it's about Top Hat questioning if GPS was actually real or what they had was fake the entire time. It's a nice song, not much to comment about, but I find myself listening to it every now and then. Overall, the music is great, and only gets better from here. Other than that, there's not much else for me to talk about regarding Any Day Now. It's an incredible episode that portrays a heavy topic well, and I think it deserves all the praise it gets. Great work, Animations. So you may be thinking I'm about to go over episode 5. Well, I'm not doing that right now. I'd rather save it for the end, and you'll see why eventually. So instead, let's talk about episode 6, Some Things Just Stick in Your Mind. This came out around 2 years after episode 5, which gave it a lot of time to cook in the oven, and it delivered. Believe it or not, this is the finale episode, and it's an interesting take at a finale. It doesn't wrap things up, it doesn't offer a solid conclusion where everyone gets a happy ending, it gives the point of view to the killer himself, and reveals what was teased all the way back in episode 2. If you couldn't tell yet, this one's about GPS, what was going through his mind throughout the kills, and what happened that led to the explosion in the end. To sum it up for you, basically a virus was inserted into GPS which forced him into autopilot. The autopilot itself caused every murder, and GPS had to get to the control panel so he could regain control of his body. The virus itself is split up into 2 parts, Cody and Binary. Cody pretends to help GPS while Binary controls the autopilot really does not exist. For an answer to all the murders, I think it's a great answer, leading to many emotional moments. The emotional moments themselves are handled really well. For example, after Cody takes control of GPS again to recover all the memories, Binary turns on the self-destruct switch. It's impossible to stop, so Cody sends GPS to one of his greatest memories, sacrificing himself in the process. What follows is a beautiful dance scene between GPS and Top Hat on prom night, with the music One Last Memory playing in the background, really making the viewer forget what's actually going on. But when GPS wakes up, he's hit with reality again as the end credits play. It's beautiful, and Alan and his crew deserves massive praise for it. Of course, there are other emotional moments, but I feel like that one really hits the hardest. Now, let's talk about characterization real quick. GPS is handled really great this episode. He's trying to find a way to take back control, of course, but during the montage where he has to go through all his memories to get to the control room fast enough, he stops rushing and stops to enjoy his past memories, good or bad. Even if they're bad, it still makes him who he is, and if they were gone, would he still be the same? This parallels Cody, who's hiding Binary from GPS, and this talk leads to the end of his character arc, when he betrays Binary in the end. It's clever, and the parallel is nice. Binary is following the program of her. It's not clear who her is, but there are theories, and they're basically confirmed by all the clues the show gives us. I'll go over this quickly. It's Ring who made the programming, inserted it into GPS, probably when he was knocked out with Speaker, then expected to kill everyone, but she died first. She invited everyone to the mansion who wronged her in some way, and it backfired, but also at the same didn't. This still isn't confirmed yet, but the epilogue is coming at some point and will probably reveal who actually did it, but that's just the most popular theory at the moment. Back to the episode, every character is great in some way, which is a relief. I'd hate for this already incredible show to lose it on the finale. Now, let's talk about visuals. Oh my goodness, GPS's head world thing is just amazing to look at. I cannot imagine how difficult it must have been to create, and it helps out with the mood the episode wants to portray so well. The lighting is of course top-notch stuff still, and the rest of the backgrounds look just as great as episode 4. The music is also really amazing. I've already mentioned One Last Memory and how it fits the scene so well, but I haven't mentioned the other 2 songs. Rewind Replay plays during the montage scene I mentioned briefly. It's about letting the memories of when life was good and fun live on, long enough until the passage of time inevitably leads them to decay. It's a fun song, not my favorite, but one I come back to often. The other plays during the credits, Half the Glass. This song represents Cody's inner struggle of being seen as only half the full thing and struggling with his identity, but in the end, maybe he can be seen as the full thing outside in. It's a nice song that's also really good. Now, there's not really much else to comment about this episode. Well, other than the mysterious scene that only proves the theory about Ring, Okay, not really, but it's evidence. We see Sketchpad burn down the museum Ring owned after investigating a robbery, and then Ring arguing with Speaker as GPS runs through this memory. It's a strange scene, but we'll come back to it because there's something about it I really find interesting. And that's episode 6. It's a really great, interesting take on a finale, and I'm honestly satisfied with it, despite not conclusively wrapping everything up. Again, there's that epilogue that's going to come out, but for now, I'm happy with where it ended. Again, amazing work, Al Animations. Alright, so this is where I talk about episode 5, right? Nope! We have the short series, A Slice of Strife. These short videos mostly don't tell us much, besides a single one, but they do add to the world building a bit, which is fun. The first one, Groceries, follows a character I haven't mentioned yet, Folder. Folder is a good friend of Top Hat and GPS, and this specific short has him, get groceries. Yeah, that's it. It follows into episode 4 when Folder talks with Top Hat in his apartment, which I think is some fun cohesiveness. It also ends with Sketchpad sneaking by, but also failing to sneak by as Folder misses his elevator out of confusion. The second video of Slice of Strife is Drinks. It's kinda just filler, not gonna lie. It's cohesive to episode 5, taking place in between scenes in that episode. However, it doesn't matter all that much, like Groceries. It's just two characters having an awkward conversation while someone sings drunkenly in the background. Then it just ends with a drunk person yelling and a bottle shattering noise. Not sure what else to say. I like the cohesiveness though. The third video is the really great one. Embers tells us more of Ring's backstory from 12 years ago. How do I know it's 12 years ago? I don't know, the newspaper told me. Anyway, this shows Ring camping with her mother before a meteor falls from the sky, and the forest she's camping in catches on fire and kills her mom. So when Sketchpad burnt down the museum her mom worked so hard on, her past trauma from that kicked in. It's pretty interesting, but to make it even more interesting, this also explains why Sketchpad is animated differently compared to everyone else. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I personally don't care about the Daily Object Show, but Sketchpad originates from there. This is why he follows all these Object Show tropes. Why is he in the Nightly Manor universe? I think during the finale he was like teleported in the world, and him falling into the forest is what caused the fire, because he's just that much of a menace, I guess. In the end, we see Speaker finding Sketchpad. I actually really like this backstory for Sketchpad and Ring. Ring desperately needed it, and Sketchpad's actions are explained a lot more, which I like. One last thing, we have another song to go over. Embers has a song play out through most of it, which is fittingly called Embers. It's about mistakes and how they can easily go wrong, but just as easily be covered up in the snow. You know, like how Ring's plan was a mistake, but it was covered up because of GPS. Okay, I'll stop screaming. Clever song, it's melancholic, and really great. Amazing work, Al Animations. Now, the moment you've probably been waiting for, episode 5. Let's get into it. I've had to rewrite this section of the video because I felt the original paragraph I wrote didn't really portray why I love episode 5 so much. It's an episode I care so much for that I want everything I say to mean something. Before I get into why this one episode is one of the greatest videos I've seen on the platform, I wanted to get into its one flaw. The first scene is a never-before scene of spray painted mouse during chapter 1 after Ring's death. The first part is fine, but it becomes a flaw when Speaker shows up. He's a part of the episode and has some history with the duo, and this scene seems like it was made just to explain that. Yes, Speaker remembers spray paint. This scene is useless. It doesn't make sense why it wasn't just shown in the first chapter. The only answer I can give is that the writing team wanted to avoid a plot hole, but it isn't executed well in the slightest. That's the one and only flaw that this episode has, and it isn't actually too bad. It's ignorable, and everything this episode does outshines this moment so much. So let's finally get into why I love all the world and you and me. You can probably guess, but this one involves Spray Paint and Mouse and their relationship. It isn't the most insane backstory, but it's amazing enough. The two were a part of this gang of thieves until they weren't, because Spray Paint, fueled by the desire to prove himself, almost got them caught during the heist on Ring's museum. Despite it just being Spray Paint who was kicked out of the group, Mouse went with them. I'll mention this now, but their relationship is part of what makes this episode so incredible. The fact that Mouse is there for him no matter what, through thick and thin, is just wholesome to me. You could see a bit of this during the first chapter, but it's on full display here. The two end up at a bar where Spray Paint's desire of being the provider for Mouse and himself is still strong, leading to him asking for a job at the bar, though he's denied. Even when he's drunk and getting kicked out of bars, Mouse is still there for him, even when he punches a police officer and lands them both in a prison cell. This moment's pretty cool, because every main character's in the same place at the same time before the mansion incident. It's a nice little detail, nothing much to it. Anyway, this scene in the prison cell is incredible. It's Spray Paint finally opening up to the one person he can trust in this world about his struggle. That feeling of uselessness that strives him to push harder in life, it's unbearable. But even in his darkest moments, Mouse is always there. She explains how he doesn't have to prove himself to anyone, as he already has to her. And no matter what, she'll be by his side. After all, it's them versus the world, and she wouldn't have it any other way. And neither would spray paint. And that cherry on top with Speaker hearing all of it and letting them spend the night in the cell, and knowing they don't have a place to go back to, it's just incredible writing that always manages to put a smile on my face. Episode 5 is incredible in almost every aspect. From the visuals, to the music, to the lighting, it's all amazing. But I don't think it would have hit this hard for me if I couldn't relate to it. Not the heists, her being homeless, her getting drunk, no, none of that. I'm talking about spray paint's struggle. I can relate to it, as being seen as useless in other people's eyes is one of my greatest fears in life. It's a fear I've had for a while, leading me to not wanting to do much, as I'm afraid I'll just be proving my uselessness. But just like spray paint has Mouse, I have a friend that's always there to pick me up whenever I fall. The relatability I feel in this episode not only gives me a close connection to it, but helps me appreciate every little detail it has to offer. And that's all it needs to become my absolute favorite in the show. But it only got better. People who have watched the show would know that I skipped a scene, one of the most crucial scenes in the episode, the end credits scene. After the cell scene, it cuts to the duo on a bench outside. They talk about last night and their future. Then it starts snowing, and the credits start playing as the show's greatest song begins, Be a Friend to Me. It's a duet between a male and female singer, obviously symbolizing Spray Paint and Mouse. The lyrics are about exactly what I've gushed about so much this episode, how they'll always be there for each other, to soften all their falls or fix their crowns. It's beautiful, and the chorus is even better. The two voices finally start singing together, repeating the line,
"Oh, won't you be a friend to me? Oh, won't you be the one I need? Oh, won't you be a friend to me?"
But as that ends, the male voice fades out, leaving the female voice to sing alone. As the chorus repeats, a distorted voice joins in quietly in the background as the female voice finishes the song.
"Oh, won't you be a friend to me? Oh, won't you be the one I need? Friend, you don't have a thing to fear, 'cause even when we're gone, I'll still be here."
Throughout this final chorus, the scenery changes to a hospital room. 2 lights, one broken, one flickering. Then it pans over to flowers, to a heart rate monitor. And as the final lines play, the camera finally shows Spray Paint. In the present day, barely alive, he's hanging on through his lowest point in his life. His best friend, the one person he could trust, gone. And now he's stuck in this hospital bed, in critical condition, fighting for a life of nothing. There's nothing left for him to fight for. Unlike Top Hat and Sketchpad, he has no one to rely on. Not a single person. Spray Paint has nothing left. He's homeless, barely alive, and he lost the one person he cared for in this world. But he carries on. This is really just a theory, but maybe he's believing in those last lines in the chorus. Even when we're gone, I'll still be here. Maybe he believes Mouse is still there. Maybe sitting with him in that same hospital room. And that's why he's fighting. Again, that's just a theory, but it's one I like to believe. Spray Paint's ending in this series is ambiguous. We don't know whether or not it's good or bad, and that's why I adore it so much. It's sad, awful, but maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. This whole final scene is brilliant, absolutely stunning, and easily my favorite moment in the entire show. From the incredible song to the beautifully made final scene, it's phenomenal. Episode 5 as a whole is something I could never predict. The fact that most of the runtime is spent making you forget what will happen is instead getting you attached to these characters really makes that ending, where Mouse's silhouette fades away and Spray Paint is left alone in that hospital bed, so much sadder. I don't think it could have been more incredible. Thank you, Alan. You and your team have really touched my heart with this episode. The nightly Manor was made with heart. I can see the huge amount of effort Alan and his crew put into making this show something special, and it works. To the amazing characters and their beautifully portrayed struggles, or the incredibly well-written emotional moments, it's all fantastic. So if you for some reason watch the entire video without seeing the show, go watch it. Even with spoilers, it's incredible. It managed to get emotion out of me every time, and that's worth something. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I'll probably make more video essays, but for now, I need to sleep. Night, folks.